Oh. Hello there. We did this episode yesterday, and I was thinking about it today, and I realized that the way I start the next topic might be jarring for some of you, especially if you're in mixed company or around people you don't want to hear really bad language. So I'm just warning you now, especially if you're listening to the audio version, you may want to shut it off if you're with people that you don't really want to hear bad language. All right, we'll see you later. Bye.
Colin.
Yes.
What do you got for me?
Cunt. Why is this word so offensive? Why is this word so offensive?
I have no idea. I've never understood this. If you can call everybody a pussy, why can't you call everybody cunt?
So I don't think you should. I think it is offensive.
But why? I don't get it. Is it just because it's reserved for like talking about that woman is very mean, so she's a cunt?
Yeah,
that's how it is in our society. Yeah, sure.
Well, I know. Oh, in Britain they use it all the time.
Yeah.
They're just throwing cunt around like no big deal.
So this is the thing, right? It's the word even in different English speaking societies, and I think the major English speaking societies, obviously the United States and England. In England, it's thrown around like the word cunt is basically like punk, like or you're a punt, you're a punk, you're a cunt, you're a like, and they're just throwing this word around like it's willy nilly. But in the United States, it has this deep offensive connotation, like this deeply offensive connotation. Like it's a word you do not use.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that is. So I looked it up.
Got me some history.
And
Benjamin Franklin said it once.
So there's
Martha Washington.
So I found a bunch of stories, and you can really just Google why is cunt offensive, and find a bunch of things that people wrote. But on Slate, Forrest Wickman earlier in a couple of years ago in 2013 writes, "Rhymes with runt. How did the C word become such an offensive insult?" And it says the satirical newspaper The Onion offered a rare apology yesterday after a joke that a 9-year-old actress was kind of a cunt, right? Has the word always been so patently offensive? No. In Middle English, the word could be used as a standard term for the female genitalia in a manner that was quite matter of fact. The earliest instance of the word recorded in the Oxford English Dictionary is actually from the name of a 13th century London street. The name appears to have been quite literal, and there was at least one other red light district of the same name in Oxford. And then he goes on, the word became more offensive over the next few centuries, while Chaucer used the variant quaint in both The Miller's Tale and The Wife of the Bath's Tale. Shakespeare dared only to slyly allude to the word. In Hamlet, for example, when Ophelia tells Hamlet that yes, he can lie on her lap, Hamlet puns in his response, "Do you think I meant country matters?" That's some fucking deep Middle English shit right there. Damn. In Twelfth Night, Shakespeare finds a coded way to spell out the word when Malvolio recognizes his ladies, sees her use, ends her tease. So basically it goes on. This is a really interesting story. People can go read about like the evolution of it. But he goes, why has cunt become so much more taboo than, say, snatch or pussy?
Right.
The main reason may simply be that it's blunt. Linguists note that unlike those other words for the female genitalia whose origins are Latin, euphemistic or diminutive, cunt is plain and Anglo-Saxon. There is also the sound of the word. Many of the most taboo words, in addition to generally being Anglo-Saxon in origin, are monosyllables with short vowels, such as shit, piss, fuck, and cock. These are considered more offensive than words of the same meaning, like poopy, pee, screw, and willy. In fact, one of the only other words to share many of those characteristics is twat, which is also considered highly offensive, though its origins are uncertain. So what do you guys think about this? This has always been a weird one to me. It's a word I don't use, but it's a word I don't use because in America, I've been programmed to never say it.
Right.
So when you watch like Guy Ritchie film, or you watch or you just see something in England, like they're throwing this word around.
But they have a cool accent when they say it.
Right.
Oi, governor, you're cunt. You're like, oh, okay, you can say it. Cute.
So do you guys think that this word should be as loaded? Because I agree. It's like, why not? It means the same thing as pussy. We call each other pussies all the time. Yeah, but there's no offensive nature.
It doesn't though, because with that in particular, that has a different connotation that over time we've given that. Like you wouldn't call someone a pussy and a snatch in the same way. You know what I mean? Snatch, cunt, pussy. Yeah, those all mean one thing, but like it's like a Venn diagram, and they don't all fall in the same way. I think snatch and cunt do. I think pussy is a different thing, where pussy is also used as a way to say that somebody is afraid of something or somebody is not, well,
also, yeah, I mean,
to do something.
It boils down to you don't call a female, you wouldn't call a female a pussy. You wouldn't be like, that girl's a pussy. Like most of those terms are used derogatory against guys, right? So, and I would say the same thing. If I called one of you guys a cunt, I don't think it's as offensive as if I'm using that to describe a woman.
But right? I feel like that's so weird.
Like I called Tim a cunt the other day on one of the podcasts, and no one called me out in the comments about it. Granted, I don't read the comments.
No,
so
they did. I read the comments.
But it doesn't matter, right? Like, I don't care. I don't care. And no one's going to get up in arms about me calling another guy a cunt. It's not going to matter.
But, I mean, but they will.
Sure, but I'm not going to get roasted on Twitter. Like, the feminists aren't going to get involved on Twitter and be like, this guy's using this term to describe women. It's not going to happen. And even if it does, I don't care. But
please define the feminists to me.
All right.
Feminists.
Are you not a feminist?
I am a feminist, sure.
Okay.
So
I wouldn't do that to myself.
Yeah, I just think that the words, no word should be loaded, but it's a matter of, it doesn't matter whether or not they should be. They are. So it's like you got to keep that in mind. And it's up to you whether or not you care and give a fuck about how people feel about that stuff. But it's just like, I mean, I definitely am aware of that, and I don't use the word because I mean it makes me uncomfortable. I don't know why. It shouldn't, but it does because
it makes you uncomfortable because it's never said.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the thing. I 100% agree with everything we're saying. Is growing up until this day, how many times have I ever heard somebody say cunt when they're not talking about quoting a British movie, or how weird is it that we don't say cunt, or why somebody does say, like, everybody's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I mean? It's one of those words, I think, where
it's a trigger word too. I mean, that's the problem with this, right? Is like a lot of these words, you're especially us, you're afraid. You don't want to use it incorrectly and get roasted. That's just the nature of the beast, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad or good thing. I mean, who the fuck wants that extra headache of saying something that you didn't necessarily mean as a bad, in a bad way.
2016, and in our world of video and Twitter and social media, it's a minefield.
If I called a woman a cunt right now, like not.
Do you want to address one of them? You can.
No, but if I were to do that, I would expect there would probably be a backlash to a certain degree.
Sure.
So I just don't do that.
But the question is, not that I'm saying you should use the word, or not that I'm saying the word's good to use, or that, but why? There's a deeper meaning here. I think they're onto something in that Slate article, that it is forward. It is just like cunt. You know,
do you feel like also that we have to have words? Like, there has to be a hierarchy of words, right? Because right now we're slowly we're taking words back, or people are, so we're losing words. We're not. I'm sorry. I'm trying to.
Team fat. We're taking that back.
But you know what I mean? Like, there has to be. Words get desensitized after a while, right? Everyone can use the word fuck now. It doesn't matter anymore. When I grew up, if I use the word fuck, I'd get slapped across the face.
Yeah, me too.
And I can call you a fuck. I can call anyone a fuck. That guy's a fuck. That girl's a fuck. It doesn't matter. No one really cares.
Fuck.
Fuck. But we say fuck all the time.
But it's interesting because the rule set is the same. Fuck is just as curt as cunt. Shit is just as curt. You know, and
but
so I don't know that
it's. I think our fuck is the UK cunt.
So I don't think it's monosyllabic. I guess, in the sense that it's not that it's just one syllable. Mm-hmm. There's more to it than that. I just think it's really weird. Like, that word gets people aghast. I actually couldn't think, unless it's literally a sexually or racially a racial term or a sexual term, like a sexist term. I can't think of one word in the English language that makes people as aghast as that word. And to me, I'm like, I don't get it.
I think cunt's right up there with the N-word. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think it's on that level. And obviously not right up there because I say the N-word rather than when I'm like,
right, but that word has literal historical connotation.
There's a
That's
reason
why we don't
for why
use
that's
it.
like it. I get
so
you.
I get that.
But I think this is the same thing where it's just taught at such a base level that that's the worst thing you can say to a woman. That it never gets said.
But you could call, not that I'm saying you should call a woman a bitch, and people do that, and people do get offended to that. I think we've all been in arguments with where that word comes out and it's a terrible thing and you don't want to say it. It's a deeply offensive word. But people call women bitches all the time.
And I feel like
women call themselves bitches as well. And
that's the thing. That's a word that got taken back. I remember growing up, and if I was to say that one girl's a bitch, oh my God, it'd be World War III. And now it totally is #living with my bitches. It's a word that people have taken back into vernacular where it is that.
That's my favorite hashtag.
I shouldn't do that. I don't want to be a bitch or whatever. Like, it's not just, I think it is very much where when we were growing up, if you said something and you said somebody was a bitch, you were specifically talking about a girl. You were not talking about, I'm being a bitch right now, you're being a little bitch right now. It's that you were it's on the, not on the level of, but similar in the use of, I'm calling this person a cunt because they are the worst kind of person.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's still a dangerous word to be throwing around.
Bitch?
Too. Yeah, that's one of those that I feel like I try not to throw around. Because for some reason, I feel like that could be a trigger word as well.
I mean, things have just changed. And it's funny you saying that, because to me, bitch was totally a different connotation, where it was never, bitch was never female. Bitch was always just like a word that people use to describe. It was very similar to pussy, you know? But I think all these words, especially now as we're at 2016, whatever, it's just, we talked about this before with retard or faggot or whatever, or gay, whatever. All these words, they're just words. But these words do cause people to feel a certain way, and I think that you just got to think about that shit. And it's like, even when it goes from those hard words down to the mid words like bitch, it's like, yeah, you know, we've gotten in so many arguments over time, and I feel like more and more and more to the point where I'm like, why am I saying that if I don't need to say it? Even if it is in a term of living with my bitches, which I totally, I do say that stuff, you know, but I now think about it when I do.
Right.
And I think, is it worth the joke? Is it worth what I'm saying? And it's just like, am I too sensitive or whatever? I don't know. I'm just trying to make people happy. Like, I'm not, like, that's the thing, is I don't want to like upset people just to upset people. You know, I'm not going to die on a fucking hill just because, you know, other people want this freedom to,
You're trying to be crazy.
Say whatever you want. I'm like, all right, but I mean, like, these are just words, and there's other words.
It's the power we give them, and that's the thing. I think when you keep a word like cunt closeted, and then you act like it is the worst thing in the world, then it is this nuclear warhead. Whereas I think you've seen it scale back, like you're saying with fuck. I do remember like that being the worst thing you could say.
Fuck was horrible. Now everyone uses it. I mean, even myself, like in the course of this podcast, I used to never try to swear, and now, you know, I drop the F-bomb every
Now
once
you're
in
on
a
a
while.
topic about cunt.
Well, I mean, we're having an intellectual discussion about it. So,
but I do think
quasi-intellectual.
I do think I also
we
do
can
think,
get to it.
To my credit or lack thereof, I do think that I have a bad effect on people's language. I curse.
You have a great effect on people's language.
No, but I mean, I curse like crazy. Like, I've always cursed like crazy. And my mom used to get mad at me being like, "You have such a great vocabulary. Why do you curse?" And I'm like, "I'm not trying.
awesome.
I'm not trying to impress anyone. Yeah, I do have a great vocabulary.
Slayer.
It doesn't mean I have to wield it like I'm a fucking source all the time. There's no more powerful thing than say like, I'm fucking angry. Yeah, like." Who cares? But nonetheless, I think the difference between some of the words that Tim brought up and the word we're talking about now is like, well, the word retard is loaded. It's an historically loaded word. The word gay is used to describe, I mean, it means happy and joyful and all that kind of stuff, but that's not the way we use it. And
we talk about growing up and being stupid.
Right, exactly. And so like that, there's connotations to that, but with the word, like, the word cunt, I'm like, well, that never meant anything.
But I mean,
it
does though. It's just towards women. Like, it's all those words are about a group in a specific way, and I think that's just towards women. We just don't think about women in that way, you know. And I think that like historically later, we're going to look back at it, and it's going to be like, oh, that was derogatory towards women. That was describing.
Oh, I'm not stating that the way people use it isn't derogatory towards anyone. What I'm saying is like, why is it more derogatory than some of these other terms, and why like is it more or less offensive if I call, you know, Nick a cunt as opposed to a woman? I just think it's like it's a word that I would never use.
Yeah.
But I'm really just wondering, like, in a philosophical way, like, well, I can think of worse words that we do use, and I like the word to gyp someone. That's like an offensive term to a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know,
gypsy,
that's
right?
with gypsies.
Gypsies, yeah.
Like, so, but we use that word, and that word is kind of come and go. Like, I can understand way more why the word gyp is offensive, even though that's a word that's in American use every day, than a word like that. So that's all I'm trying to say is like, I'm super interested to see what the audience thinks, especially our female audience, about this word, because, and also the international audience, because I think some of the international audience will be super surprised. Lola's playing with her Annie. She loves that toy. I got her that toy. She loves it. I think the international audience might be surprised to find out that word is like maybe the most deeply offensive word in American American vernacular, apart from the obviously racially or sexually loaded terms that we don't use. But in Western Europe, that word is not offensive at all. So I do think that there's that other thing as well. There's a connotation there as well that I think is societal, that I think is worth exploring as well. And I'm super interested in why that is. And it's kind of hardening to think, because I was like, is this a question so off the beaten path and so offensive that people, I'm sure people have written about it, but do the people ever really talk about it? And I'm finding like major publications all, when I'm searching about it before we got into the podcast, being like, this is a term that's, or a question that's been asked by major publications. And I think it's a question worth exploring. Like I think to Tim's point, like, yeah, we shouldn't want to be offensive just to be offensive or just to explore our freedom of expression or whatever. It goes back to the old court case of like, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater or whatever. And some people would argue like, why not? And it's like, well, because it's like not in good taste necessarily. It doesn't really affect your freedom. You're not like really being restricted in any way. But in the same sense, it's like, we should probably question why we don't societally say things, even if there's no constitutional amendment saying that we can, or even if there's no rhyme or reason of why we do or don't. So I just thought it was an interesting kind of thing. And I've been actually mulling over this topic for some time, because I'm like, I got no conversation.
We tried to do it when we had the 17-year-old on.
Well, I was going to do it that week, and I'm like, well, I don't think it's appropriate to do it with a guest, actually.
And the first thing I said to him was about prostitution.
Right. So yeah, so you went there anyway.
I can't remember what it was.
But I had a conversation with someone, a woman recently, and she totally agreed. She's like, I really don't get why like this word became so loaded. But it is, and we just avoid it. And I wonder if we will always avoid it, or if we will come around to it. But I really don't know, because I'm so afraid of that word that I would use it in an effective way anyway.
I don't feel people are clamoring for it. I don't feel like there is an audience that's like, man, we gotta take cunt back. And granted, it'll happen if it happens one day. a new generation of Tims rise up and need to say cunt.
I mean, I doubt that. I
Yeah,
doubt that.
that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
it's really.
We have enough words. Get
It's
out of here,
interesting for
British
me to
people.
think about all that, like swear words and stuff. I swear a lot. I swear constantly, and it's
Yeah.
just part of who I am and what I do. And I feel like when I was younger, I was way more like for
Bless you.
people saying fuck and not for the censorship of all that.
Yeah.
But then I found now that like there's a lot of times, especially when I'm like excited about stuff, I just swear. It's like ticks. It's instead of me saying or like, I say fuck. Like, and I do that
I say
a lot.
fucking a lot. Like fucking.
Like noticing
Cars.
like at Kind of Funny Live, like being on stage. I can't even imagine how much I was swearing. I'm sure I was saying fuck every other sentence or every other like once a sentence. And I think it's weird. And when you start noticing all that stuff, you start noticing like questioning. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Why don't I want to do that? I don't know. I just don't think that that's a good look.
Sure.
Period. That's the end of the statement there. It's not like I'm trying to like please a group of people by not swearing or swearing. It's just like I just don't think it's who you want to be.
Well,
you
there's also a difference between a swear word and a derogatory term, right? Fuck is a swear word. There's no real hidden like meaning in that, right? Versus the word cunt, which is typically about, referring to a woman that in a bad light, right? So shit and fuck, I mean, those are just words at this point, in my opinion, like words that adults are allowed to say. But yeah,
As Michael Richards said, some words.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, you know
My
what?
dramatic reenactment
You know
of the
what's
end of
an
Michael Richards' career.
That stand-up act that he
Yeah.
did.
You know,
that was
what's
terrible.
interesting? It's like a supplementary word. It's not a swear word. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh, you don't say it." Is the word "damn," and that word actually,
hell.
Yeah, hell. Like these words are religiously loaded, damnation, and all that kind of
Well, that's
stuff.
the funny thing about as much as I curse on Twitter or social media, I get way more feedback of like, why do you have to say that when I say goddamn?
Oh, I mean, that's a huge thing with all of it. Because to me, I'm like, that's just something you say. That's just a phrase.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it, is just a thing you say. But then like people I know that are religious, like kind of like, I can see them getting uncomfortable. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, this is weird. This is weird. You know?
It's weird, but it's also, we're
And
going
then Tim
deep
screams,
down
"Your
the
God
rabbit-
is fake."
My God, I had this
Turns the crosses upside down.
I mean, you really do have to like. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole in this one, but you do really have to judge words by the intent with which they were said.
You do, but
that
I mean,
is the most important
honestly,
thing.
here's the thing.
If I stub my toe and say "God damn it," I'm not. Or if I say "God damn it," or I use that as a turn of phrase, I'm not meaning it to insult anyone's religion. It's not. That's not what I'm meaning it for. And if you're taking it that way, I can understand that we can have an intelligent conversation about it. Or you can choose to look at it in the context of the conversation and realize Nick was just saying that to be funny or having a good go of it.
But
Right?
I think the problem with that, and the thing that makes this really hard to kind of understand is imagine if someone like stubbed their toe and said "fucking white people."
Whoa!
It's like, I mean, who cares if they
I mean,
said
Kevin
that?
says that all. Kevin, you're.
But it's like,
shaking your
but
head
no,
all the time.
that's a perfect
Kevin has the
example. Like
minority
when
report, by the way.
when Kevin says shit like that.
No racist.
Thank you.
When Kevin says shit like that, it triggers something in me. It's little, but it's a weird, slight bit of discomfort where you're just like, that is the thing where I'm like, there's so many ways where I'm lucky enough that I don't need to deal with that shit that much.
Yeah.
Trying to imagine what other people need to deal with, like, and it's all the slight things, but like, yeah, God damn it, like to us is nothing, but to the people that do care about that and like are brought up to know, like to believe that you're not supposed to say that stuff. It's like, it's just those little things of it's just little tiny hitting them, and whether or not you give a fuck, it's up to you. But I just think that I've noticed it where people will say stuff like I grew up with all Asian friends, and the amount of times they talk about white people as a whole, and I'm like, it makes me feel weird. You know, I'm fine with it. I can keep going on with the conversation. It's not like I'm going to cry myself to sleep. But
Are
like,
they specifically talking about you?
they're not
just
but
references to you.
They're not talking.
White people
about
dress
me.
so weird and have
They're-
sneakers.
They're not talking about me. But that's the thing is like,
Yeah.
and I noticed that where I was like, man, if it hits me in this way,
You can only
I
imagine.
can only imagine when it's something that's actually, people being held back.
Yeah.
Not fucking me.
I understand.
Yeah, it reminds me of the whole Washington Redskins issue.
Yeah.
When this started to like really erupt a few years ago, I was like, this is really much to do about nothing. Like, it's
Have
not
you seen
meant.
the reports
it-
lately on it?
it's
Like,
not-
the
it's-
articles that came out, or not articles, the reports that were coming out like as a month ago. They actually polled a bunch of people and they were like, we don't care. Like,
Yeah,
we're treating
well,
immigrants.
there's
but the
like,
polls were like all the polling was like 100 people.
well, that could be representative group depending on
but-
the method, but
I don't know.
when it happened, I'm like, because it goes back to Nick's argument. Where I'm like, this isn't meant in an offensive or derogatory way.
Yeah.
But over time, as this has gone on over years, and I've seen kind of interesting, compelling comparisons of it, and like kind of some thought-provoking editorials and the things people say, I'm like, I totally get it. You wouldn't call a team the White Skins or the Black Skins, so like, why would you call it the Redskins? You know, and I'm like, well, that's a totally valid argument. I'm not going to dispute that. It's the same thing where Bomani Jones a few weeks ago, I think, was wearing a shirt with the Indians logo that said Caucasians. And I'm like, that's not offensive to me, but I get your point. Like,
Sure.
why, as opposed to the Braves, which I think is a fine name, or the Fighting Sioux, or whatever.
Sure.
Like, that's totally fine with me. Or the Illini, who I don't even think are they even called the Fighting Illini anymore?
I believe they're. Somebody has to look it up. I haven't looked into it. I thought they just got rid of Chief Illiniwick. I don't think they.
Yeah, so like maybe some of the Chiefs do like the Brave chop or whatever, like in Chiefs games, and some people find that offensive. I'm like, so I think that you can kind of so I'm getting it to Tim's point, like more and more, where I'm like, okay, like it's to Nick's point, it's not. I don't think they call the team the Indians to be disparaging the Indians. The logo is super racist. I'll give them that. And they don't have that logo. And they don't have that logo anymore.
Yeah.
It's the I. It's just I think an I now on their hat, or a C or something. But it's not like the chief with the big smile and everything. I'm like, okay, that's offensive.
Yeah.
I get why you wouldn't want that. But and it's funny because I actually had that hat like randomly when I was a kid. Someone gave it to me. I'm like, I'm a Yankees fan. No, give me an Indians hat.
Weren't the Indians in Major League?
Yeah, exactly.
But to me, it's like, so I'm starting to understand more of the sensitivities as they come up. It's just that this particular word that we're talking about with the topic, I'm like, I just understand it a little bit less. I understand the loaded nature of it, but I don't understand how it became so loaded.
Sure.
I guess that's the thing I'm thinking of, as opposed to like the Washington Redskins. I'm like, inevitably, inexorably, that name's going to change because they're losing their trademarks. Like people can stand outside of a Redskins game now and sell Redskins merch.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Without like they're allowed to trademark their logo, but they're not allowed to trademark an inherently racist term, and the government has said that you can't trademark the term Redskins. So now anyone can sell anything they want with Redskins on it, which is something the other teams you can't do with the other teams. So so it's an interesting kind of thought game, I guess, in a way, where it's like I like to think about the etymology of words, and I thought with that particular word, I'm like, it's not a word I use. I understand how deeply offensive it is in American culture, yet I don't know how it got to this point. And it seems like no one does, as I was reading. There's a lot of guessing.
Well, see, what I don't really grasp from this whole thing is that I feel like, what about the other words? Like, what's the difference between, like, faggot? Like, how did that become a thing? And I think that I think cunt's the same way as that. I think they are in that same category for whatever reason, in the same way that I'd put bitch and gay in the same category, where they are just lesser versions of, like, I think bitch is to cunt what gay is to faggot.
But like, isn't the I believe faggot, going backwards, faggot literally is a bundle of sticks. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was that some gays were burned alive via using faggots, and then they started calling them faggots. I think that's how it went. But I guess I have the
I think that's the point. I don't. that sounds right, because that's
what
that
the
word
story
means.
I heard, but I've never done research on it.
But yeah, to the point, it's like that. There's a lineage there with all of those words, and no one knows how this word became so loaded. We know how the word gay became loaded. We know how the word faggot became loaded.
Mm-hmm.
We know how the word
bitch.
retard became loaded. We know how all those things became loaded. But and bitch obviously is loaded for obvious reasons. It's a female dog.
Yeah.
But like, I don't understand this word.
I mean, it's genitalia. Like that. I think that alone, right? That.
But
and then,
so is pussy.
Yeah, I know, but I think that it's just like when it was
Or
loaded
cock.
with. But then like all right, I guess gay and faggot with the sticks thing does change that up a bit. I don't know. I just
don't think it's quite as simple. I mean, I agree with
I
you
see
that
your
it's
point
not
on
what
this
we
one,
use,
but I mean, to Colin's point, like, yeah, I mean, to me, I'm more on Tim's side of this, where I see that they're both very diminishing in diminutive terms, versus like something like asshole, which is really, I mean, it's I guess not gender specific, so it doesn't really matter. Like, everyone's got an asshole, so you can call everyone an asshole, right? Is that how that works? Like, is anyone offended by asshole?
Yeah,
mortally. Well, it's an insult. You're rendering an insult to someone, but I mean, like, versus the word faggot is a much more loaded
100%.
word, much more powerful, because it's traditionally used as a hate speech, right? Whereas asshole, that's just a plain old insult, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like people use the word asshole all the time and don't get offended about it. I think that's one of those words that's just everyone's been desensitized to, I think. But to me, and this is just to me, but bitch hasn't and pussy hasn't. Like, I wouldn't use the word pussy in mixed company. For some reason, saying that word specifically makes me uncomfortable.
It makes me uncomfortable watching you say it.
Does it make you in a bad way or like a sexual way?
Like a sexual way.
Like you're thinking about yourself and maybe
you.
What we might. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Greg, what'd you find out?
Nothing. It's always
Nothing
one
yet.
of those super complicated ones. I'm trying to get it all together.
Yeah.
English, late 16th century, it was an abusive term for women, particularly old women, and reference to homosexuality may derive from this. As female terms are often used to reference to homosexual or effeminate men. Nancy, sissy, queen. But then it's like an alternate possibility is this. An alternate. Okay, so it's like
It seems like it's the same thing with the word we're talking about, where it's like there's just no research.
Here we go. There is an urban legend called the oft reprinted assertion by Douglas Harper that the modern slang meaning developed from the standard meaning of faggot as a bundle of sticks for burning with regards to burning at the stake. This is unsubstantiated. The emergence came in the 20th century.
It has to come from something like that you have to assume.
Yeah, I mean
Right?
that's why. I mean that's
It's
why
safe
it
for
makes
something.
sense with if you're calling, particularly old women, a faggot, and then you want to like, oh, you sissy, you pussy, whatever, stuff like that.
Anyway,
Well, either way,
Words are weird.
I wanted to talk about that.
they are weird.
Hope, I
Glad you
didn't,
did.
hope no one's too deeply offended out there. I just think it's interesting to approach these topics as they come. You know, it's something I was thinking about. So
Another word.